Hi everyone, thank you for joining today. Good evening, and it's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to this session on Elsevier solution to support medical students' journey from learning to assessment. So I'm Jade, the marketing manager for Southeast Asia, and I'll be your moderator for today. As a continuation to our remote learning series from last week's panel discussion, we would like to share more on the digital tools from our product portfolio that are specially designed to address remote learning challenges, including improving the quality of online learning and teaching, facilitating student assessment, and supporting skills development. So I'm delighted to introduce our Elsevier speaker for today, Ms. Natasha Gulati, Customer Success Manager for Southeast Asia at Elsevier Health Solutions.
Thanks.
Sorry?
Thanks. Thank you for introducing me.
No problem. Of course, I have to. Natasha helps to ensure our clients are receiving the maximum benefit from our health education solutions by providing solution guidance and, of course, sharing thought leadership with faculty and students. She has over 12 years of healthcare industry experience, focusing on consulting for hospitals, medical universities, and medical device companies. So before handing over to Natasha, I would like to share some of the housekeeping rules. So this webinar will be recorded, sending out the recorded version via the thank you email next week. This session, of course, will be conducted in a Zoom webinar format. So if you have any question at any point of time, kindly make use of the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we address them along during the session. And there will be poll questions along the way. So when you see the poll question pop up on the screen, we will encourage you to share your opinion, and we will definitely flash out the results at the end of the poll. Last but not least, we will appreciate your feedback. So kindly share your comments via the feedback link that will be shared at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, let me hand the floor to Natasha. Natasha, please.
Thanks, Jade. First and foremost, thank you very much for joining us today. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our esteemed audience for joining us. I'm Natasha, and I will be talking to you about Elsevier solutions that support medical students' journey. To set the context, some of you may have attended our webinar last week, Medical Education in the Post-Pandemic Era. We do understand that medical education has faced a number of challenges, and some of those challenges still persist. For example, skills development, access to labs, access to resources. But in the webinar last week, we really focused on very specific challenges. So we acknowledge that medical education is literally 1 year hence since the pandemic era. And there are so many new things which have been adopted. Amongst those new things, we continue to focus on challenges related to assessment and student engagement. In our presentation today, we will discuss with you on how some of these challenges can be assessed. As Jade pointed out, there will be some poll questions for us to be able to collect your feedback. And also, please share your comments in the Q&A box or in the chat box so that we can keep this extremely interactive. We would really like to hear from you as we move forward. So going into the presentation for today first. As I mentioned, we realize that all medical universities around the world have really transformed in the last 1 year. If we focus specifically on student needs and how they have evolved in the last 1 year, at Elsevier, we conducted a global survey to get feedback on these kind of issues from faculty and students. What was highlighted to us that students are using a number of online resources, and yet they remain challenged and apprehensive about the access to resources. 69% of the students claim that they are using e-textbooks, 71% that they are looking at free online resources such as YouTube videos, and 62% claim that they are looking at digital resources from their institutions. So there is all of this content available. Some of it is proprietary, some of it is provided by institutions, while others are available for free. And yet students remain a little bit concerned on whether they have the correct content and whether they have comprehensive enough content. So it is the quality and the breadth of content that matters to students at the moment. So that's on the content side. As I mentioned, we'll focus a little bit more on assessment, simply because we have seen a much greater use of assessment in the last 12 months as compared to previously. So we realized that 92% of the faculty claimed they are spending a lot more time on creating new material. 76% of the faculty claim that they are trying to spend more time on engaging students. 63% of the students claim that they don't get enough guidance, and 64%, almost the same amount, are uncertain of their progress. That's where the assessment tools have actually taken a foothold to address some of these challenges. So in response to those 4 challenges, 2 by faculty and 2 by students, we realized that assessment tools can actually address some of those challenges. For example, faculty claim that the assessment tools can help engage the students a little bit more. They also said that assessment tools have become more and more valuable in the remote learning environment. Students also said that they feel more engaged through the assessment tools in their online learning. And students also said that it helps them prepare a little bit better through the assessment tools. So clearly there are some benefits for assessment in the online learning environment. So at this point, we'd like to hear from our audience today that where do you see the maximum benefit of formative assessments? In your opinion, which of these is the most important benefit of formative assessment? Evaluating student understanding and progress, assessing applied knowledge, developing critical thinking skills, and preparing for a final exam or a high-stake exam. And note, we actually want you to give us one correct answer because we want to understand your opinion on the one most important thing for you. So we'll give our audience maybe 30 seconds to answer this poll, and we'd really love to hear as many votes as we can get. So I'm getting majority of the votes for evaluate student and understanding, but in the interest of being fair to a poll, I'm going to give it another 10 more seconds for everybody to answer. So developing critical thinking skills is also coming up on the charts. Maybe we just wait for a few more seconds so that we get more answers, just to, like I said, be fair to the poll. I can see that one of the participants said ape. It seems that they're not able to answer the poll, but we note on your response. Okay, so let's end the poll and we'd like to share the results with the audience. So as you may be able to see on your screen, evaluating student understanding and progress was the most important benefit of formative assessment. Thank you for sharing that. At our end, we ourselves get mixed responses all over the world. Some focus more on the critical thinking aspect, some focus more on preparing for high stakes exam. The audience today from Southeast Asia focuses more on student understanding and progress, which is quite positive actually. It shows that you're letting the student take center stage and letting the students drive their performance and their education journey. That's excellent. So thank you very much for sharing that result with us. Moving on, at Elsevier, we believe that the student should always be in the driver's seat. And we believe that the student journey starts from day one of medical school. Our goal at Elsevier is to support the student journey from day one all the way into practice. So whether you are fresh in medical school, whether the students are in rotation, whether they are young residents, or whether they are future clinicians, specialists, at Elsevier, we want to support them throughout that journey. Specifically, if we look at the student journey during the teach and the study, review and assess phase, we realize that on a very regular basis, there is a cyclical process that students follow. They study, which means they absorb content. They also want to review, and that's very important for instructors as well, where they want to review how much have students understood. Students also want to assess themselves. So they want to also understand how much have they learned themselves. And this is a cyclical process. We study to understand concepts, we review to formalize concepts, make them very, very clear in our mind. And then we move into the assessment phase, where we try to ensure that our foundations are very, very strong. We try to ensure that we know the fundamentals very well, and therefore we can answer any question. So this is a cyclical process which students follow every day, every week, every month. It is just a learning cycle. At Elsevier, we support all three stages through Clinical Key Student. So I will be talking to you more about Clinical Key Student in this session, and specifically how the platform supports study, review, and assess. Specifically in the study phase, what does the student need? The student needs to sit in a quiet environment where they can focus and read. They need content, they need basic foundation content, which they can absorb and create good sound foundations, fundamentals in their mind. So that's why Clinical Key Student offers more than 250 top-notch Elsevier textbooks, which help create the foundations for medical students. These textbooks also come with 1500 quick access summaries, so that once the student has learned from the textbook, they can always revise their concepts using the quick access summaries. It also comes with images which are copyright cleared, so the students can use them in their research or in their presentations. It comes with videos to further enhance the learning, because we believe in multimodality learning. So just reading something from a textbook may miss out on certain experiential knowledge which the students need. For that, we provide the videos as well. And that's where the review part comes in. So once you've absorbed the knowledge from the textbooks and you've absorbed the videos and the quick access summaries, you want to also be able to review and engage with that content. So that's where all our engagement tools come in. Not only can the students read the textbook, they can also internalize them by creating their own personalized notes, highlights, flashcards, and presentations within the same platform. So it acts as a digital platform where the student can maintain their own personal copies of their textbooks, and in those personal copies, they can create their notes and their presentations. The entire platform comes with an accompanying mobile app. So all the books that the students are reading can also be downloaded into a mobile app. And those books which are downloaded into the mobile app can be accessed offline as well. So when students are traveling, or when, as you may all know, they have internet access issues, they can still access the books and read offline, because the most important thing is to allow them to study anywhere at any time. And that's what the mobile app helps with. So we've done the study, we've done the review where we've understood the concept. Now, once you have understood the concept, we need to see whether the students can apply those concepts as well or not. That's where assess comes in. Before we move into assessment, I want to ask you, how often do you recommend that students engage in self-assessment? So imagine the students may have gone to a classroom, a lecture. They may have, after the lecture, studied the chapter, made some notes for themselves. At what frequency is it required that the students assess their own progress? We want to again hear from you. So I can already see that some of you have started answering the poll. We'd like to wait for everybody to answer. So maybe just give it 30 seconds. And unlike the previous poll, this poll seems to be getting very mixed results. In the previous poll, it was obvious that the one choice of choice was evaluating student understanding and progress. But it seems for this question, we are getting mixed responses for daily, weekly, and at the end of every module. So let's give another maybe 10 seconds for everybody to respond. we are still getting very mixed responses. So it seems that there are different, maybe either different opinions amongst people or different opinions amongst people from different countries. This could reflect your personal or local education practice, but more or less, there seems to be a tie between daily, weekly, and at the end of every module. Okay, so let's stop the poll and share the results. Majority of our audience said that students should engage in self-assessment on a weekly basis. I would also suggest that students should engage in self-assessment on a regular basis, either weekly or at the end of every module. The challenge, however, is the resources. So while students themselves may want to test and assess their own knowledge, the challenge is that they don't have access to resources to conduct self-assessment. They may not have access to question banks, or even if the faculty want to give them some questions, it takes a lot of time for the faculty to create questions and create an entire question bank. For some universities, they have their own question bank, which they've taken years to build. So that's where, again, Clinical Key Student can help. In terms of assessment, Clinical Key Student allows students access to a rather broad assessment question bank. From this question bank, students can conduct self-assessment in the study or the exam mode so that they can really understand whether they have mastered a concept or not. There are almost 5,000 questions in this question bank, and the questions come with inline remediation, which means that the student will be able to gauge why a particular answer is correct and why a particular answer is incorrect. At the end of the assessment, the student also gets feedback on which are the key concepts that they need to study a bit further. And then the system loops back to advise the student based on the key concepts, learning material that they should read. So if a particular concept is identified, the system will also recommend relevant books that the student needs to focus on. Before I progress further, may I check if there are any questions up till this point? I'll just check the chat as well as the Q&A box in case there are any questions. Okay, no questions. So since there are no questions, we'll move on. As I mentioned, Clinical Key Student is Elsevier's latest, most advanced medical education learning platform that helps students with studying, reviewing, and assessing. We've talked about it in slides, very, very theoretical. Let me show you how that is done in a typical student journey. So this is what the platform looks like. Imagine if I was a medical student, my name would appear here. So the first and most important thing to use is to think about is that every single medical student gets their own personal account on Clinical Key Student, because every single medical student has unique learning needs. They have a unique learning trajectory. So that's why every single student must have access to their own personal resources, and they need to be able to go through all those resources at their own pace. So that's why every single student who's using Clinical Key Student gets a personal account, and they can determine that by making sure that their name appears over here. Now, as a student, I may have attended a lecture during my class in the morning, and now I want to revise and I need to probably make some notes as well. Maybe the lecture was on hypertension. So I can search for hypertension here. When I type hypertension, a menu of options comes up. So this menu is based on related terms which other students around the world have been searching. I can actually go into one of these directly, or I can simply click on the magnifying glass to remain with my original search term, which is hypertension. So as I mentioned, Clinical Key Student allows students access to Elsevier's leading textbooks, and the textbook content is further supported by quick access summaries, videos, and images. When I search for hypertension, I get over 8,000 results. The most notable feature on the right-hand side of the screen is the quick access summary. Let me first show you this. The quick access summary, as I mentioned in the presentation, allows students to revise clinical concepts in a quick, shorter time, but making sure that they still have access to the most important information. So when I open a quick access summary, it gives me everything that I need to know in bulleted format. So for example, within hypertension, if I wanted to look at management, I can just jump to management and I can read this in quick bulleted format. So it's very easy for students to revise. I can also see where is this content coming from. So this content is coming from Crash Course in General Medicine. If I wanted to, I can jump to the book. If I don't want to see the content from Crash Course, maybe I want to look at the same hypertension related content from Goldman, I can switch. So I switch to Goldman session and I can look at hyperkalemia, hypertensive syndrome here. So I can see the related content in a different book as well. So in this way, the student doesn't need to open the full book and chapter every time. They can just go through the quick access summary over here. But this is once the student has already studied. If we focus on the study mode, in the center of the screen, you can see many types of content. You can filter this by books, videos, or images. You can also filter the content by basic science or clinical medicine, depending on where the student is in their student journey. And of course, you can filter the content by specialty. So for today, let me filter this, say, by basic science. And I'm going to focus on books. So when I filter the section, you can see instead of 8,000, the system has narrowed it down to 2,000 results. Let's go through these results now. In the result, as you can see, it doesn't take you to a book or a chapter, it takes you to the most relevant section. So that is again to help the students save time rather than making them go to a chapter, identify a topic and flip through pages. This will take them directly to the most relevant section. So in this case, the relevant section is primary essential hypertension. It's coming from the book Guyton and Hall, and the chapter is chapter 19. Similarly, this is a section on systemic hypertension. It's coming from Rangan-Dale's Pharmacology, chapter 23. Let me open one and show you. So as you can see, because I clicked on this section, the system directly goes to that particular section, which is primary essential hypertension. One very convenient thing about Clinical Key Student is that it is hyper indexed. Everything, every topic, subtopic, chapter is linked. So if I wanted, as a student, if I wanted my colleagues to also read this section, I can just copy the link here by clicking on this little chink icon, copied link, and paste it anywhere I want. So for example, I could paste it in a slide, or I can paste it in an email or even in a WhatsApp. When the students log in and they click on the link, they will directly be taken to this section. So I don't need to tell my colleagues, refer to Guyton Hall, chapter 19, page 700. I don't need to give them those instructions. All I need to do is just copy this link. And again, that helps you save time. For my own personal reading, if I wanted to jump within this chapter, I can use the scroll bar. Instead of primary hypertension, if I wanted to go to one kidney gallbladder hypertension, I can just jump here and start reading from here. I can even change chapters. So right now I'm on chapter 19, but maybe I thought of something else. I need to cross-reference. I can see the entire book's TOC right here in this menu. So instead of hypertension, maybe I want to jump to vascular distensibility. Just click here. And that's how fast it is to jump between chapters and topics. It really helps students save time given the amount of reading that medical students need to do on a daily basis. Now, as you can see, there are some additional options on top, and I'd like to introduce you to the Bookshelf app. The Bookshelf app is where the review mode comes in. You can study in this browser, you can read, which is great. But if, as a student, if I wanted to make notes, I can use the Bookshelf app. That's where I need the Bookshelf app. So I can add this to the Bookshelf app here. And I can either launch the Bookshelf app from here, or I can launch it from here on top of the screen. Let me launch it here and really talk to you about what it means to have the Bookshelf app. The Bookshelf is a partner application that comes along with Clinical Key Student. This application or app basically works as your personal digital library for any student. For example, if I click on the home screen, which is also called the library, in this library, you can now see all the books that I have been reading, my personal books. So at the moment I was reading Guyton and Hall, but if I scroll down, you can see these are all the books that I have been reading in the past. I read Davidson, Goldman Cecil, Grey's Anatomy, Ferries. I also have access to the nursing platform, so critical care nursing, trauma, Kumar and Clark's. And every single student can maintain their set of personal digital books in this library. So all medical students in your university can maintain their own individual copies of these books in their digital library. By individual copies, I don't mean that you just have access to this book. By individual copies, I mean that the book is literally individualized and customized to that particular user. So for example, when I click on Davidson, as I mentioned, this is my personal library. You are looking at my personal copy, digital copy of Davidson. If you scroll here, you'll see that the entire text is available to the students, or to me in this case, in a completely PDF looking format. So it's it's almost like looking at the book in a digital format. But not only can you look at the book, the students can also create notes and highlights in this book. So if I select it, I can actually highlight it like that. So we understand that medical students, including, in fact, sometimes I still do it. I'm turning 35 and I still do it. When I'm reading something, I have a bad habit of marking things with highlights of different colors, making notes in the margins, putting little post-its on top or stickers on top. Instead of doing that in a physical book, with Clinical Key Student, I can do all of that in a digital manner. So I just have to select the sentence and I need to add the highlight. And even these highlights that you see over here, I have created these. So I decided that everything that I mark in red is something that the teacher discussed in class. Everything that I mark in yellow are my personal notes. Everything in pink is for the group study. So these are, even the highlights can be customized. I can even add notes. So for example, if I select this, I can add a note here that I can add notes like this. I can even add hyperlinks. So for example, if I wanted to cross-reference this, maybe vascular distensibility, and I want to cross-reference it with something over here, I can just add the hyperlink here. So in this note, you can see this hyperlink. So students find this really fun. They can create these digital highlights in their books. At any point, if they want to review their highlights and notes, they can just look at this notebook on the left-hand side of the screen. So right now I'm on this chapter on diabetes, but I've been creating some notes in the genome chapter. There's some note over here on chromosome 1 through 22. Maybe I want to revise this. I can just click on it and it will immediately jump to that chapter. So it immediately jumps to the point where I made this note, right? And you can then start reading from here. So students can actually do this. They can start reading from here. So they can use this notebook to really jump between notes, to cross-reference chapters, to make notes on what they want to share with others. And they find this very, very interesting. They can even create flashcards. So for example, this is a flashcard that I was working on. You can create flashcards by chapter or for an entire book. Now, this is something on test on diabetes. I have 7 cards here. I can click it. And maybe I want to add another flashcard. So let me find something to add. Just copy from here, create a flashcard, and I want to put it in the deck on test on diabetes. So the copy text automatically goes to the front, and maybe at the back, I want to put some additional text and save. So these flashcards, again, students can use during revision. For example, when I click play, it shows the flashcards in this format. So maybe I want to study all my cards, and this is how it opens. So the front of the card says metaphase. Do I remember? Do I don't remember? The last time I studied, I didn't know it. I think right now I know it. Metaphase is the phase where the cell starts dividing, the nucleus starts dividing. So I know it, but maybe let me just check once. And this is the example here. This is the explanation here. I can go to the next card, analgesics. What are analgesics? Something to do with painkillers. I don't know it. I just flip the card and I can see the results. So basically, it's like students are creating their own flashcards, and then before an exam, they can use these flashcards to revise. So there are a lot of these tools in the Bookshelf app, which basically allow the students to interact with the books. Not only can they read the books in this browser mode, which is a bit static, they can even interact with the books in this digital app, in this Bookshelf app, and they can create their own notes and highlights. So it makes learning a lot of fun and engaging for the students. Now imagine, maybe as a student, I've read this entire chapter and I want to revise. So we went from study to review, and now we're at assess. We've studied, we've reviewed, we've made our notes and highlights, and we've all created the flashcards and the important points in a chapter. Now we want to assess our understanding. As a student, I want to assess whether I've really understood the concept or not. For assess, I can either create a test from here itself, or I can go to the home screen or the assignments tab. And I can create a test from here. So every book chapter has the create a test button, which will allow the students to create a test on that subject or topic. They can either create a test directly from there, or they can come to the assignments tab and start creating a test here. The purpose of this assignment is to allow students to conduct self-assessment on a regular basis. It's a form of formative assessment. The idea is to allow the student to take control of their learning. The idea is to let the student decide how far are they in understanding a concept. So we allow the students to create their own assignments and then work with that to see where they stand. Let me show you how. When a student clicks on create a test, up front, the student can already see where they stand. So for example, these are my test results. They are at the moment displayed by systems. I can even change this to disciplines. So in basic science, within disciplines, anatomy, I have taken 7 out of 221 questions and I got only 29% of that correct. So as a student, I know that in the anatomy course, I have taken a very small set of questions, and even in that, I scored only 29%, which is not great. I need to work a little bit more. In biochemistry, there are 107 questions. I took only one and I got it correct. Well, that doesn't say much. Same for energy metabolism, same for epidemiology. So clearly I need to work a little bit more. On the other hand, in immunology, I took 5 out of 56, 80% correct. So at least this gives me some comfort that maybe my immunology is strong. As a student, I can already see where I'm performing. Now, I can, as I said, I can see this by discipline or I can see this by system. Similarly, in clinical medicines, I can see this by specialty, competency, or systems. I switched it back to systems. And maybe for today, I'm going to focus on cardiovascular system and the respiratory system. So I've selected two systems to focus on that I want to practice. I want to assess myself. You can see the summary here. I can cross this out and add another system, or I can just leave it as is. Then the system will ask me, the clinical key student will ask me, what sort of questions do I want to practice? As a student, do I want to practice all questions, any questions? Do I want to see questions I haven't seen yet? Questions I got wrong because maybe I want to practice my understanding, or questions where I chose not sure. And I'll come to this one in a little bit. Let me choose the questions that I haven't seen yet. I'm going to take this test in study mode. We also have exam mode. The difference is that in study mode, the student is able to see the correct answer at the end of every question. In the exam mode, they can only see the correct answers when they complete their quiz. So it is for their own benefit. When they are unsure of a concept, they might want to take the test in study mode. When they are very sure of a concept or when they are practicing for an exam, they might want to take the test in exam mode to prepare better. I'm going to start with 10 questions and I'm going to say start test. Now, this is where I need help from the audience. I am not a medical student. I haven't studied in many, many years. I'm really hoping that you can all help me at least with a few questions in this quiz. So I would appreciate it if you could suggest your answer in the chat. We'll give you all a minute to go through the question and try to answer it. So my first question is a case-based question. A 45-year-old Afro-Caribbean woman presents with a 2-month history of cough. There is little to find on examination of the chest. Chest X-ray reveals bilateral hilar lymphadenopathy. Bronchoscopy and biopsy show non-caseating granuloma. Which of the following conditions is most likely affecting the patient? And we have 5 answers. Lung carcinoma, COPD, pulmonary tuberculosis, fibrosing alveolitis, or sarcoidosis. Again, allow the audience to read for a minute and please share your answer in the chat. Okay, so one of the audiences says sarcoidosis. Maybe we just wait for a few more answers. Let's see what happens. So one person from the audience is saying sarcoidosis. Anybody else has any guesses? We'll just wait maybe 10 seconds for the audience to read. Somebody else answered A, somebody else answered D. So we're getting very mixed responses. Lung carcinoma, fibrosing alveolitis, or sarcoidosis. Let's go with sarcoidosis in acknowledgement of answering first. Thank you very much, Dr. Allen. We appreciate your quick response. So when I click sarcoidosis, the system will ask me whether I'm confident or not sure. This goes back to what you saw on the earlier screen, where the system will ask, does the student want to take questions that they were not sure of? Again, the purpose here is to really test the students' foundations. How confident are they? As a student, am I confident that my answer here is correct or not? Maybe I'm confident. And you can see that indeed sarcoidosis is the correct answer. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing the correct answer with us. We really appreciate it. So this is the study mode, where as soon as the student answers the question, They can see which is the correct answer. They can also see the inline remediation on why this is particularly the correct answer. They can also see why these are not the correct answers. Since this is about sarcoidosis, if the student wants to understand a little bit more about sarcoidosis, they can just click here and view the quick access summary. And the student can also copy this question and the explanation. So maybe they want to copy this question and keep it in their notes in a separate file or folder somewhere for later revision. They can even copy it over here. Let's go to the next question. And now we're going to go a little faster now that you've understood how this platform works, how this quiz works. So let's see who gives me the first answer. There are a number of different types of junctions between cells and extracellular matrix. So this is a theoretical question. It's not a case-based question. Which of the following statements about communicating junctions and gap junctions is correct? Are also known as tight junctions, allow electrical impulses to pass directly from one cell to the other, allow small positively charged ions to pass between epithelial cells, are important for transfer of fat molecules, can be found in blood-brain barrier. Any thoughts? I think it's C, but I'm not sure. Any feedback from the audience? It's a very, very basic sciences question, I remember, but I can't remember the answer. Any inputs from the audience? Any guesses? Dr. Allen is again saying C. Dr. Paul also said C. Even I think it's C. So maybe let's go with C. And this time I'm going to say I'm not sure. Oh, but C is the correct answer. That's what I thought. At least I remember something. And again, I can read why this is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. So this question has a diagram also with it that we need to study. In stretched cardiac muscle, the increase in strength leads to increase in tension up to a limit, then tension falls. What is true of Starling's law? So this is the diagram. And these are your options. Energy released during contraction depends on the initial fiber length. Flow velocity is inversely proportional to the total cross-sectional area of the vessels. Laminar flow in a fluid depends on viscosity, tube length, and radius. Pressure and resistance in a fluid are related by Q is equal to delta P by R. Pressure in a sphere increases with wall tension. Any guesses? So let me show you the diagram again, just in case. And the question is, which of these statements are true of Starling's law? Any guesses? My guess is D. I think the answer is D. But I'd like to hear, I need help from the audience. Please help me. Any guesses? Any thoughts? So we have the answer E. Dr. Allen again says E. I say D. So we could be having a little bit of a war here. Anybody else? Any thoughts? Any feedback? Is this too difficult a question? Or is this too basic a question and you don't remember the basic concepts? Anything like that? And do share that feedback with us. We'd like to hear, what do you think? So Dr. Paul also says D. Physiology concept, yes, it is. And it happens to so many of us. We've studied these basic concepts eons ago. Sometimes not that it affects our practice in any way, but it still kind of, becomes hazy in the mind from a theoretical standpoint. So we got another vote for D. I'm sorry, Dr. Allen, I'm going to go with D because most of us think it's D. And I'm again going to say that we are not sure. And the correct, oh my God, the correct answer is A. None of us got this correct. And you can see the explanation law. The explanation here, Starling's law of the heart states that energy released during contraction depends on the initial fiber length. Apparently that's the statement of the law. And then if people want, they can see the quick access summary on hypertension. I got this one incorrect. This is actually Darcy's law. Now, how am I supposed to remember which guy created which law? Oh God. As long as I remember the laws, that's what's important, right? But anyway, so this is how the students can go through the quiz. We are taking it very, very calmly. I'm sure the students get very hyper when they get this answer incorrect. I'm sure it affects them. For the purpose of today's presentation, I'm not going to go through every question. I'm just going to quickly mark a few to show you what happens at the end of this test. So I'm just randomly clicking dots and clicking confident and not sure. The student would obviously read through the whole question, spend some time thinking, answering, and then also be honest, hopefully, about being confident or not sure. Almost there. I used to personally love genetics. I still do. I still read a lot of books on genetics, inheritance, those kind of things. So when the student finishes answering the quiz, as we mentioned in the presentation, they get their own personal progress report. So in this case, as you can see, I got 40% of the answers correct, 4 out of 10. And it took me 7 minutes to answer this quiz. Now, this is important for students because not only do they want to check their accuracy, they also want to check their agility. How fast can they go through these questions? How rapidly can they think? As a student, I can actually schedule myself to take the same questions again. Maybe I want to practice the same quiz. I can do it right now. Or I want to study a little bit more and I want to retake my incorrect questions in a month. So I can actually schedule this, or I want to blind schedule this. I put this at 1 month and I forget about it. And I come back to my incorrect questions after a month to see how much I've progressed. As a student, I can do all these things. At the moment, I can see that I need to focus on 16 concepts. They are listed over here. At the bottom, you can see some quick access summary. So the concepts which I need to focus on are related to atherosclerosis, hypertension, and other things. And then further down, I can see my entire report card. So these are the incorrect questions. I got 6 questions incorrect. And I got 4 questions correct. As a student, I can see which ones those are. Going back here, clearly these are the concepts I need to study. I can see the 11 others as well, but the number 1 concept to study is acute coronary syndrome. If I click on this magnifying glass, clinical key student will take me back to study. So I did study, I went into review and I created my notes and then I assessed myself. When I assessed myself, I realized that I need to study a little bit more about acute coronary syndrome. So I come back to this section where I can either see the quick access summary of acute coronary syndrome, or I can read this chapter from Conn's current therapy on acute coronary syndrome. So in a very, very rapid manner, I have shown you what a student might go through, the thinking process of a student that he might go through over a period of at least a couple of days, if not weeks, to come back to these foundational concepts. I have shown you that entire thinking process in less than 45 minutes. But this is how the students can complete that cycle from study to review to assess to back to study. At a broader level, the student can also monitor their own performance. So if I go on to the performance tab, I can see over here my lowest scoring topics. So topics where I got most questions wrong, and also my lowest confidence topics. So those questions, those topics in which the questions I marked as not sure. In the quiz, you saw that there were confident and not sure buttons. So for those topics where I marked a lot of not sure, this is that list. So my lowest scoring topics are cell biology, anatomy, pathology, whereas my least confident topics are cardiovascular system, physiology, respiratory system. So maybe I want to either take a quiz on cell biology, start all over again, or choose something else. I can even see my performance for each topic, and I can even see my performance by either basic science or clinical medicine, systems, or by disciplines. So as a student, I can monitor my own performance. So that's almost everything about Clinical Key Student. Just one last thing that I also mentioned earlier and I want to share is that if instead of books, if I search for images, as I mentioned, Clinical Key Student gives you access to more than 2,000 high definition images which are copyright cleared. So when you search for images, you can see the image and a brief description. And this is coming from Goldman Cecil. If you click on the image, you can see the image in a bigger screen, and there's an add to presentation button. So I'm going to click add to presentation, and I'm going to create a new presentation today. So I'm going to call this webinar PPT, just like that, and save it. And add this image here. Close this. I can even select additional images. So maybe I want this one. Add it. And okay, so it's on webinar PPT right now. That's already selected. Just click add. I'm going to maybe add this image. Add to presentation. Again, webinar PPT is already selected. I can click add and continue adding more images, or simply click on add and view presentation. So when I click on add and view presentation, it directly jumps to the presentation tab. Webinar PPT was the last presentation I was working on. As you can see, there were many others that I've been working on in the past, but this is the last one. If I click download, all the images that I have selected get downloaded in a PowerPoint format. So this again really helps students save time and inculcates a best practice. A lot of students tend to take their images from Google, and when they do that, one image may not be a high definition image, the image quality may not be so good. And then secondly, we don't know if the image can be used in external presentations, and we have to create this copyright, the citation and the source. When you use images from Clinical Key Student, they already come with the source and citation over here, as you can see. All the students need to do is just copy this image along with the source and citation and use it in their own work. So students can just use these images rather than using unproprietary images or proprietary images from the web. Similarly, as I mentioned, we have videos, we have images, and we have books in this platform. So just to summarize, there's all of this content which helps the students study books, images, and videos. There's also the Bookshelf app, which allows the students to maintain their own personal digital copies of all their books of choice. And in those personal digital copies, the students can make their own notes, flashcards, all those other tools. And then once they have reviewed all of this content, they can create their own quizzes and assess their performance. So in a nutshell, it completes that entire circle of the student learning process. So this is everything that I wanted to share about Clinical Key Student today. I'll pause here to check if there are any questions.
Natasha, thank you. Thank you for your time for sharing in-depth for this platform, Clinical Key for Student. So we do have a few questions coming from an educator, asking whether are they able to view the summary of student usage, especially for the assessment portion, and what are the key features that are really useful for them.
Sorry, so your first question was that can they see the summary usage, and can you repeat the second question?
The key features for the educators.
Sure. So the answer to the first question is yes. When institutions take access to this platform, they get monthly usage reports, which include an overview of the usage of the content, which is the books, images, as well as an overview of the assessment usage. So how many students actually created assignments, how many assignments were created, things like that. Specifically for the educators, I think the entire platform benefits the educators because the content can really help you increase the pace of your online lecture. So I can imagine it takes a lot of time for the educators to create online lectures. And if you use the digital content, that creation process can be faster. And also, there is the option of integrating this platform with your learning management system. So those universities who have a learning management system can actually integrate this platform with their LMS. When you do that, the faculty, the educators will be able to create tests and send those tests to the students. So you don't have to only rely on the students conducting self-assessment. You as faculty can also create formative assessments and send to the student on a regular basis. So that advantage is available if you have a learning management system. If you don't have a learning management system, then the platform is still useful because you can use the content. You can also use the question bank. So you can see the questions, you can see the answers, and maybe copy the questions and use them in your own work. And of course, the students can still use the question bank to do self-assessment. I hope that answers your question. If there's anything else, please also add on.
Thank you, Natasha. So let's move on to the next question. Is there a mobile app where we can access Clinical Key for Student? And whether is there an offline mode for users whose home internet is patchy?
That's a very good question, Jade. I actually agree. I think internet is a big issue in our region, and internet access in many regions is still a privilege. So the Clinical Key Student platform comes with the accompanying Bookshelf app. There is a mobile app for the Bookshelf. So students can actually download the Bookshelf app. In that Bookshelf app, all the books that they have been reading will be available. So when students are using the browser, they can add the book to the Bookshelf, as you saw me do in the video. Once a book has been added to the Bookshelf, that book will remain in the Bookshelf app till the student is an active user. So at any point, even if the student doesn't have internet, if they don't have laptop, if they can't go on the browser, but they still have the Bookshelf app in their mobile phone, they can use the Bookshelf app in the mobile phone to access the books that they have been reading. So at any point, even if you don't have internet, you can still access the books using the Bookshelf app, which is available for mobile devices. I hope that answers your question, Jade.
Yes, thank you, Natasha. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. I think we're at 6 p.m. mark. So Natasha, do you mind sharing that page? Yeah.
Sure. Let me just. Sorry.
And of course, thank you, Natasha, for taking the time off to share her knowledge and experience on Elsevier solution. So we hope that the audience will draw some inspiration that can be applied in your respective institutions. So before closing, we would like to take the opportunity to share some of the COVID-19 resources Elsevier has made available free online. So I think the text may be a bit small, so you will receive all these hyperlinks from my email next week, which will be sent out early next week. And also do look out for the post-event email where I will share the links and also a quick feedback survey link as well. And of course, most importantly, the download link for the e-certificate of attendance. So you can also scan the QR code over here to complete the feedback form. So we really appreciate if you can take some time off, to share with us, on the feedback of the webinar so that, we can improve and include more interesting topics for the next session. And with that, thank you so much for attending today's session, and we wish you to have a great day ahead. Thank you so much. Thank you, Natasha.
Thanks, Jade, and thank you very much to our audience. Thank you for your time today, your valuable time today. Don't forget to give us feedback. We'd love to hear how we can improve. Thank you and have a good evening.